Hi folks, Tacitus today at your Pushback Channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about a number of claims made by globalist, shill, flunky economists. And some of these people, I doubt they could even add one and one together. They're so fucking stupid. But these shill economists that are saying that if mass immigration to the West of third world black and brown illiterate peasants, if that immigration is stopped or slowed down or even limited slightly to say just skilled migrants, then it's going to be an economic catastrophe to the West, a catastrophe the likes of which you've never seen. Dead bodies in the streets, little babies dying, and the people that would stop this mass migration, you know what they are? They're fucking Nazis that Hitler personally is doing. So these are the sort of dire warnings. Now, there's no details, of course, there never is with these things, just the dire threats and the warnings and catastrophe and trying to put people in a state of fear so they can be more easily controlled and more easily silenced. Now, how exactly illiterate third world peasants who can do nothing, can produce nothing, create nothing, have no skills, are illiterate even in their own language, how they're going to make this economic bounty, this huge economic bounty in the first world West is quite beyond me, nor is it ever explained by these so-called economists. But they're not economists, they're just shills. And if they do have any economic expertise, it's long since disappeared in the in the bounds and the bowels of the waterfront mansions the globalists buy them if they're useful talking head propagandists for the globalist cause. Now, just on that, I'm looking at one here. I mean, she's a European economist, supposedly of some repute. The usual sort of thing, she's a published author and she's been given prestigious jobs and awards in various economic think tanks that the globalists control. So if you look at her CV, it appears, and she'd be, I don't know, mid to late 30s, I suppose. If you just look at the CV, so wow, that's impressive. Oh, gee whiz, look, she got the award for such and such. Oh, she was voted most accomplished economist of the year in the European Union. Oh, wow, well, this person must know what they're talking about. And if they say Armageddon is only around the corner, if we don't have illiterate black peasants coming into Europe, must be true. Of course, nothing could be further from the truth. Now, if you look at this it doesn't take long either, by the way. She lives in one of the whitest and wealthiest areas of Europe. It's 99.5% white. The only non-white people are multi-billionaire Arab oil sheikhs that own a few properties there. So they're hardly likely to be running around the street and defecating in the gutter and chasing your daughters and all this sort of thing. So really, it's effectively an all-white, rich neighbourhood, and that's where she lives. So she can talk about having masses of illiterate peasants coming in from Africa and Pakistan or Bangladesh. I mean, she can talk about that sort of thing, and it's not going to affect her. And this is the same whenever I talk to well-to-do people who are on board with the globalist thing. And when I say, well-to-do, like a net worth of greater than $10 million type thing, and like a trust fund type income, they don't have to worry about. It's not subject to economic conditions or anything like that. So they're the ones that are generally on board with the idea of masses of servants and lawn mowing flunkies and labourers and people to clean their swimming pool and all this sort of thing. The idea of masses of those people coming in seems to somehow be attractive to them. But at the last conversation I had, as I was driving along in the the $150,000 car of one of these people, he says to me, he loves all the mass migration. That's all good. It's essential. He's got no comprehension of it. He just parrots the talking points, but he does add. He said, "Well, I don't know those people living anywhere near me. I don't want them. I don't want my daughter dating those guys. I don't want those people hanging around with my son and this. Those. So he doesn't want them anywhere. I don't want my wife to have to worry about going down to the shop or walking down the street or this sort of thing. I want my nice, quiet, tree-lined street with no crime to stay the same. Those people and all their crimes, that can be over the other side of the city, but I don't want it anywhere near me. Nor could these people afford to live in the $5 million houses that these folks live in. But it's quite disingenuous to say it's a wonderful thing as long as it's nowhere near me. But this is what this economist, this woman in Europe, is among others, she's not the only one, who's doing this, running around telling everybody that if mass migration is produced, it'll be economic Armageddon. Now, I'm yet to see or hear or be able to perceive in any way how this economic Armageddon is going to take place. All right, so immigration stops tomorrow. Where will this Armageddon manifest? Where will it be? And it'll be, wages of inflation and job losses and this and that and disaster, death, Hitler. And so there's no explanation. There's just these emotive sort of talking point things of, little babies will die and that sort of stuff. Oh, that's terrible. We better let all these peasants keep coming in. And of course, that's all nonsense. It's just all made up. There has not been one explanation that I've seen that satisfies. Now, the reality is, if you're from the globalist sort of global perspective, if you will, all these peasants that they bring to the West, economically in the world, like if you had a set of accounts, economic books, financial accounts, you have a set of accounts. There's billions of people in the world that effectively don't exist on the accounts. They work, their employment is as subsistence peasants, and their financial transactions nearly all by barter. They don't exist economically in the world. Not like a first world worker that works and pays tax, consumes, and has to rent and and has to buy food, and so those people exist. Whereas in the third world, there are billions of people that don't exist economically. Again, they live subsistence lives on farms, and their transactions are barter, so they're invisible to the financial set of accounts of the world. But once they move to the West, they're not. Many of them are. They kind of work in the underground economies, but on the face of it, the view the globalists have, well, we're moving these peasants from a place where they don't exist economically. They're invisible to the world economic structure. They move them to the West, and then now they become an economic unit of working and consuming. So the world set of financial books has now got an extra person, whereas before that person didn't exist. Now, the people who are the most accomplished people in those economies, whether they be doctors or lawyers or simply the well-connected goons or the already wealthy or whatever, they do exist economically in the world. So there's no benefit by moving them to the West. This idea that they're all doctors and engineers coming to the West is utter and total bullshit. They want to move the invisible peasants to the West, because then again they now form a bigger part of the world, produce and consume type structure. So that's why they want them there. But there's no benefit to the Western citizen at all, other than maybe a very small elite. These people dilute wages. They create ghettos. All sorts of crime that didn't exist before now exists, and so on and so forth. So there's no benefit to the Western white working and middle class. Far from it. It's the reverse. Now, with the possibility of recession looming, and the recession has been staved off like kicking a can down the road. There should have been recession more than 10 years ago. But recessions have been avoided by the globalists because they want to keep the mass migration gravy train running. But if there's a recession, then the population is going to turn against, if you like, the globalist sort of project and say, well, we don't want any more immigration. We've got large unemployment now. Why would we want mass migration at a time of unemployment? Now, on top of this, there's also lots of stories floating around about how artificial intelligence in various forms of sophistication and various apps are replacing human workers or reducing the need the human workers, or reducing their hours, this sort of thing. So instead of having a human worker working after 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you stick an app there and give the app a name, call it Billy Bob or Billy Jean or something, and then pretend it's a real human. So that there's supposed to be a lot of jobs being replaced. Again, these are the lower skilled jobs being replaced by apps. So at a time when recession is coming and causing large unemployment, or supposedly about to, and at a time when apps are replacing people, this is also the time when mass migration is reaching crescendo proportions. Now, the people of the Western world, even if they're recent immigrants and so on, that no one's going to really want that. Well, why are we bringing in so many people when there's these other factors at play, such as job losses due to recession and AI and so on? Then that's going to sort of affect or push back on the globalist project, so they can't have that. So they're already spreading out. The propagandists are already spreading out into the masses and through the media. Well, you're against mass migration, and you are Hitler. Do you want to Hitler? You Nazi fascist? And so they're already getting out there with that sort of thing to try and quell the questions or the pushback or people quite rightly pointing out that why are you doing something dumb like this? You're not bringing out skilled people at all. Far from it. You're bringing out illiterate fucking peasants, many of whom will work in the underground economy. Now, even if they don't work in the underground economy, there's still a subsistence economy in the West, which is a very artificial economy. And that's the economy of nail painting salons and entry-level beautician type places, discount takeout food places, these sorts of things. And these are industries today in certain sectors and areas that couldn't survive in a competitive capitalist economy. So they've been sectioned off from the capitalist economy, from the real economy. And there's this artificial economy of peasant labor from the third world that work in these places to take out food and the nail painting salons and other stuff as well, some of the restaurants and so on. And this is a situation where these businesses could not survive in a proper economy. They can only survive by tax avoidance, international tax offset scams, international labor scams, bringing out the third world, the rural peasants and all this sort of thing. And also doing things like threatening the families, saying, well, we'll get one of your kids to go to the West to work in a takeout food store, which if you're a rural peasant in the middle of some third world shithole, this is a great thing. So we'll loan the money to you as the family to get your kid out there. And if they get citizenship, then they can bring you out and your whole village and your third cousins and the whole thing. I mean, wow, their eyes just dazzle at the thought of that in this third world peasant place where dead bodies are all over the street. And so these criminal gangs, in effect, are loaning money. But then the peasants, once they arrive in the West, has to pay it back through various scam accounting and bullshit accounting, and take them 10, 15 years at the end. Then they've outworn their usefulness and they get sent back to the third world country. So there's this artificial economy exists, and it's been allowed to grow and build. And these people aren't paying any tax. The workers don't pay any tax. It's all coming in under the thresholds and under the radar, but it's allowed to exist, not only exist, but expand out of sight. And it's mainly into these sorts of artificial industries where these third world illiterate peasants are going. And so it's further corrupting and subverting, if you like, the Western economies and turning it into some sort of a de facto socialist type state or economic state. So really these economists are just, again, part of the propaganda campaign. This mass migrants are not needed. Sure, if there's a real genuine skill shortage in some area and they can't be trained locally or something like that, then all right, that's definitely a case for bringing migrants in. But the reality is, for every like a place like Australia, for example, a maximum of 20,000 skilled migrants a year are needed. Maximum. Even that's very generous. So 20,000 per annum. Now we're getting over 400,000 here, and most of those are just peasants, illiterate peasants. They're not doctors and engineers and everything. What nonsense! So 20,000 max. The same say in Britain. A maximum again, and this is an absolute maximum of say 50,000 skilled migrants a year are needed. No others are needed. I mean, the 600 odd thousand is bullshit. Same with the United States. Maybe 200,000 skilled migrants a year would be, again, an absolute maximum. They don't need any more than that. And if population is an issue, then let's develop tax systems and incentives to try and encourage more local procreation and that sort of thing. But the reality is that there is no Armageddon around the corner if mass migration is stopped. It's just that the globalists want to move economically invisible peasants from the third world so they can now become economically visible in the first world. And the idea of the only other way to do it is to throw money into the third world, but they're too corrupt and useless and hopeless. That money just gets wasted without really achieving anything. So the only way they can expand the world worker consumer sort of numbers is by moving those peasants into the first world. You've been fantastic today, your pushback channel. Thank you for listening.